there not a line for replacing the doors at ERD3? Do you recall seeing that?
Yard 3? No, so it was already, that's already included. There's a provisional amount included in the operating budget under minor capital.
So I might have seen it there.
Under minor capital.
Oh, yeah. Because I saw them on Sunday and I thought that might not be something you want to jump right into right away.
It's just the one.
Just one door?
Very,
The far
very
one?
far
Okay.
south one that can't open. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was replace all of them.
No.
Okay, we're going to start things here, please. Resume the meeting. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest tonight? Okay, seeing none. Before we start, I'd like to welcome Craig Belfry for joining the team as of today. Thank you. The best dressed guy in the room, and
Your jacket fits apparently.
still no green Christmas sweater. All right, CAO Schmidt. So tonight what we're going to do, we've got the agenda, and we saw some different orderings, but we're going to start at 8.1, then we're going to go to 8.2, council capital motions, and then we're going to go back to 7.3, which are 7.3, which is council operating motions, and then jump to 9.1 and 9.2, which is the gas tax and modernization discussion. Okay, CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council, staff. Rumor has it, actually, Mr. Mayor, that the best dressed is presenting tonight, so. Kidding. At any rate, thank you very much. And tonight we continue our discussion on the 2020 budget. This evening's focus is mainly on the capital budget, 2020 specifically, but also the 10-year capital plan. Before I get into the presentation tonight, the formal presentation, there has been a number of exchanges of emails between members of council and staff over the last week or so, so we do appreciate those emails and your input, and hopefully we've provided the information back to you in a timely and clear and concise response to you. So if there are still some outstanding items, I believe most of them now have been dealt with, but if there are any others that are still outstanding, then by all means, please let us know. So with that said, we'll get into the 2020 capital budget, and I do have members of our senior staff here tonight that will be speaking to and or can answer any questions that members of council may have regarding their request for 2020. The way we've kind of laid out the presentation is that you'll see that in tab 15 of your budget binders of the 2020 capital budget specifically, there are a number of projects there that have dollars being carried over from 2019. So in some of those cases, those dollars have already been justified to council in previous years or last year, and hence a number of them are ongoing. For example, the first two, the fire station 2, as well as the multi-purpose complex, those projects are ongoing, and we've had some discussions about that at this table, as well as there's other pieces of equipment that may be more of a timing difference whereby the order has been placed. It's just a matter of timing of when the fleet is or the piece of equipment is going to be received. So one of those is the tanker truck for the fire department. So dollars were approved in 2019. We're just carrying forward to 2020 because we plan on taking possession in 2020. So again, any questions that you may have, by all means, we'll do our best to answer them. So if we start at the first section of our 2020 capital budget, which deals with municipal buildings, again, I'm not describing every project here, but one of the newer ones that are being proposed for 2020 is the Homer Barrett Park washroom. So we have a couple of pictures here of the Homer Barrett Park facility. You can see the splash pad as well as the pavilion at this location, as well as I believe this may be a storage facility. Essentially right now, There are no washroom facilities at this park, and so staff is requesting that money be, or money has been put in the 2020 budget for council's consideration.
Mayor Cogden?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Does the washroom facility then, will it also house like a changing area for the outdoor rink in the wintertime?
For tonight, because there's going to be a lot of back and forth, the question will come through me, but discussion can happen without going through me, okay?
All right,
Thank
thank you. All right, so to the deputy mayor, I would have to double check to see whether or not there's provisions for a change room. I'm not sure if, Ryan, are you aware of what is included in that?
This was not on the slate when it was already on the slate when I started. Kind of was in the thoughts, but it was more or less for the changing areas and washroom areas for the splash pad due to the ongoing complaints from the residents in that area. Not that we couldn't potentially take a look at doing that, but again, it's something that, you know, we'd have to throw around and consider.
Okay. So again, moving on to our fleet and equipment section. So again, I'm not going to go through every project that's proposed in the 2020 capital here, but that is one of the ones in the municipal building section that has brand new dollars being requested in 2020. So from a fleet and equipment perspective, we have a number of different items that are being requested in 2020. We have a new bylaw vehicle that's being requested, and again, this is just to provide a sample of what we're looking at here. This is not exactly the vehicle we're going to be purchasing or propose to purchase, but it just gives council an idea as to what we're looking for here. Any questions from members of council on this particular item here?
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you. I notice it's an SUV up there. I'm happy to see that, but in the capital budget, I think it's listed as a pickup truck. That's fine.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, and just to confirm to you, Councillor Cabral, so project item 2020-47, unless my, yeah, so that one is specifically for an SUV? Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. So with regards to project 2020-16, and I will thank Councillor Cabral on this one. My apologies. Later on in the 2020 capital budget, there was another project identified as 2020-16, which is the Patterson Street project. That project has now been identified with a new project number, and you'll see that as we move forward in our presentation tonight. But this project here, I believe there was some discussion at our last meeting. Members of council had some questions as to what was being done here. Mr. French, I'm not sure if you wanted to provide some further details as to this project.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor to Council. Again, just to kind of reiterate what was discussed last week, we're taking our 2000 tanker, which is at its 20-year mark, and our pump 52, which is 2001, and going to combine them into one multi-use unit that would be able to take 5 firefighters to a scene. As it is right now with our tanker, it's the second truck usually out the door. All it does is carry water and personnel. It has no SCBA equipment. Basically just brings you the water. So if that's the second truck on scene and our first one is there, there's like a crew standing there waiting for the next truck to come with more equipment on it. So just to get a little bit more efficient, as well as, again, we had a call through the night, and that truck went. It was in town, and basically it just takes the people to the scene with no equipment again. There's hydrants in town. So again, we want to make it a multi-use vehicle that we can use it at any scene at any time and just be more efficient with it.
So the next project we have here is 2017-10. It's replacing a 3/4 ton pickup in our Parks and Rec area. It is a 2012 vehicle that we're proposing on being replaced.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I know last year, when we're replacing a vehicle, if you could just correct me on this or clarify it, I know last year when we made a new purchase, there was a component in there to help offset future costs. Do we do that with vehicles that we're replacing as well, CO Schmidt? For future purchases, is there a component in when we buy a vehicle, be it brand new for a new purpose or one to replace an existing one, is that component still?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral. So I believe what you're referring to is do we actually also transfer money to a reserve for the future replacement of it? So we do transfer money to a reserve in a number of different areas within the operating budget. Can I say that we specifically put money aside specifically for this project? No, but there are monies that we do set aside. Again, kind of more of a high level, if you will, that we're putting money aside on an annual basis to assist with the future replacement of these types of assets. So. Okay. So the next project is, oh, sorry, it's the same project here, just some more pictures. The next project is 2020-27 to replacing a 2013 zero-turn mower. So again, looking at replacing with a brand new mower in 2020. Next project is Project 20-37, 2020-37, which is replacing a 2007 tandem trailer. Ryan, I'm not sure if you want to provide more information on this one as to what we're using the tandem trailer for.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, this trailer is 13 years old. It's currently used in the summer months to haul our wide area mower around. So it's a tilt and load trailer that's used for multiple things. We have a man lift that we kind of take around to, a scissor lift that we take around to different locations. The hydraulics are getting weak due to the age of this trailer and the use of it. During the winter months, it is used to transport that scissor lift as well. So it is used daily throughout the park's operating season and periodically through the winter season. So just due to the nature of the heavy equipment that is loading and unloading on this trailer, there is a need to replace this tilt and load.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Have you replaced or redone the hydraulics on it at all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ritchie. No, we haven't looked at replacing the hydraulics on that unit. The frame is rusting on it. We have had it inspected previously by Two Guys Automotive, and he recommended 2 years ago that we put it into our fleet for replacement, and so we put it into our capital expenditures.
Follow on?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. Did we ever recover that trailer that got stolen on us? Is that it? Or did it ever get back, or somebody's using it on our behalf? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the next project we have is 2020-48, so replacing a 1997 tractor. So you can see a picture on the left here, which is the tractor, and then the service hours on the right-hand side here. Questions, members of council on that? No? So moving into some of our public works new proposals for 2020. So we have Project 2021-01, which is the replace number 14 tandem, which is a 2008 vehicle. So we see some pictures here, and utilization hours as well, or kilometers used to date. The next one is Project 2020-38, replacing a roadside tractor and mower. And we have a new request for a new asphalt hot box and trailer, so Project 2020-40. Any questions on that? And again, project number 2020-49, Public Works is looking for a new pickup vehicle. Again, just just kind of a picture of what we're looking at. It's not the exact vehicle that we'll be purchasing, but just to give a snapshot to members of the public and the council. Any questions from council on that?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we're kind of be coming back to motions later, so I don't want to, thank you.
And then the next item here we have is project number 2020-50, a lift for our fire trucks. So again, bringing in our vehicles, council agreed to hire a mechanic last year, and hence we're trying to do some of this work in-house here. So again, looking to extend our hoist track in 2020. From a roads and related perspective, we have.
Councillor
sorry.
Ritchie,
Yep.
1 second, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to go back to that lift. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I just want to go back. Who's presently doing this now? For the service of the fire trucks?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ritchie, it's the mechanics at Yard 1, our own township staff. They're doing our repairs to our vehicles.
And do they have a pit in the floor to accommodate underneath the trucks?
No, just a hoist.
Thank you.
Councillor Cabral?
Two questions. Prior to our folks doing it, if it had to be lifted like that, where would it go? And second question is, do we have vehicles that are that big right now, or is this just artist's conception?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral, we do have vehicles that are that big. No ladder on top, that's just an aerial, but just the big pumpers and the tankers. We still do take the water out of them. As far as where they went in the past, it was either Curry's over on Bayfield Street or Sutton Mobile that looked after it.
So moving on to our roads and related infrastructure. So under the urban road reconstruction projects, we have project 2017-40, which is Craig Road. So in 2020, we're looking at utilities, box culvert, and property acquisitions. This is something that we'll be discussing. I think I sent an email to all members of council. I know I sent you an email on Friday regarding Craig Road. So with the recent announcement from the ministry about the Midhurst environmental assessment, we will be approaching the county to have further discussions regarding Craig Road, and we're reporting back to council on the update of where those discussions go. But the intent is to start looking at conducting some work on Craig Road in 2020. The next project is project 2015-14, which is Floss Road East from County Road 27 to Highway 93. And so maybe I'll hand things over to our Director of Public Works. Maybe you can explain better than I as to what we're doing here.
Thank you, CAO Schmidt. So Floss 4 East, what we're proposing, it's actually, you can see by the project number 2015-14, it's been in the capital budget for several years, and we keep deferring it with the expectation that the county may take it over. Unfortunately, that doesn't look like that's going to happen until about 2026. So we're proposing that over 2 years we pulverize and do a double surface treatment, do some base repairs and some tree trimming, mostly where it's required, just to get us through the next 6 years until the county takes it over. So Coghlan Road, it's another one that's been in the 6-year and 10-year for a while. The 2017 road needs study rated it as a 55. Was identified for some patching work in 2018 that wasn't completed, and then reconstruction in 2021. Since we haven't carried out the patching work and we had some freeze thaw last winter, the road surface has deteriorated to the point where we are recommending that we pulverize and place a hot mix asphalt on it. You'll recall that we did have it in the additional gas tax funds for proposal that was not approved. Lorne Street, 2 years ago, Lorne Street was approved for design. So we carried out the design. So for base repairs, fill in the ditches, replace the substandard sidewalk, remove and replace water and wastewater. What we found at that time, once the design was complete, the storm sewer on William Street that goes from Lorne Street to Amelia and under Bishop Park to the river was not large enough to carry the storm flows from Lorne Street, so we deferred it a year in order to combine the two projects for 2020. Mill Street, from Old Penetanguishene Road to Highway 93 in the village of Hillsdale. Poor drainage, inadequate sidewalks. During rainstorms, the ditches overflow and the shoulders have eroded. In addition to that, the edges of the road are breaking away due to the narrow platform. Road condition in 2017 was 65, so we're 4 years later. So what we're recommending for 2020 is the design and rehabilitation in 2021. And Patterson Street, this is the one that has been renumbered, so 2020-47. Very similar to Mill Street in that we have some poor drainage. The road, obviously the surface is becoming poor condition because the water sits on it. So similar to Mill Street, we're looking to do the design in 2020 and rehabilitation in 2021. So road surfacing and resurfacing and rehabilitation. Doran Road, you'll recall, last year was approved for design. This is from County Road 27 to the pedestrian crosswalk. The reason we're not simply resurfacing it, we have some drainage issues. Shoulders are in poor condition due to the parking at the school. So the design will review the road condition, sidewalk, and some possibly parking, like a layover type lane at the school. The design has been completed, the applications for the storm sewer submitted to the MECP. You will have noticed that the increase in the budget amount from what was estimated last year and what is proposed for this year has gone up significantly. This is due to larger diameter storm sewers being required and additional earth excavation so we can keep the road profile close to the existing. For those of you who know the area, the homes on the west side or the southwest side are lower than the road, so we don't want to raise the road any more than what currently exists there.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you to Director Coleman. When this construction is done, is there collaboration with the school board or parent council? And I know that in the past, through every bylaw change that we've made surrounding the school or any construction we've done, we've always been very respectful of the school and asked for input. But I do know that we get a lot of feedback after a change has been made. So I just don't know if there's a different approach we can take or another opportunity for us to reach out to the school. With the catwalk at the back of the school, and now is this similar to a kiss and ride lane that's being proposed, or is it just more of a shoulder?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin, it'll be very similar to Elmvale's Our Lady of Lourdes School. We will, once we have the design finalized, we will meet with the school board. I know for the Hillsdale, we met with the school board, we met with their representatives of what would be happening out front. If you're familiar with the Albert Street project, we actually redid some of their parking lot, and they have obviously agreed to pay for that portion, so we'll invoice them on that. So if there's anything that we can do at this school as well, we can roll that into our project and help them realize some savings.
And thank you, and not so much, I mean, we're always concerned about the financials with it, but there just seems to be a disconnect in the community where I feel like half of the community wants one thing and the other half wants the other thing, and I don't know how Whether, I mean, reaching out to the school board itself is one thing, but if we can maybe get a meeting with the actual school, teachers, principal, or even the parent council as we're moving through this, I just feel like it might be less afterwards, and something that I'm very willing to do with the ward counselor. But I think the community is going to welcome this very much so. I just want to maybe be preventive on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. We can have an open house or something similar to like we did. I think the timing for the Albert Street reconstruction, we timed with a town hall. I don't know if we'd be necessarily due for a town hall in Midhurst, but we can certainly have an open house. I know in the past we've had sort of a capital project open house where people are invited to come and make comments. We could do that as well here. It's close to the school in this case. Okay, Floss Road 10 East. Again, just another project where the 2017 road needs study rated it in the 50-55 pavement condition rating and recommended that it be pulverized and rehabilitated in 2020, so we've added that. Ushers Road, a project that's actually been deferred since 2018. The 2017 road needs study rated that as a 50, but due to various budget constraints, we pushed it back for a couple years. So we're looking at pulverizing a double surface treatment there. Floss Road 8 West, you'll recall this one kind of popped up with the additional gas tax funds. We were looking to put a single surface treatment on it. In reviewing it, it was rated between 50 and 55 in the 2017 road needs study. So we've brought this forward. It's unfortunately suffered some significant freeze-thaw deterioration last winter. Deteriorated more quickly than we expected, so that we thought we would bring it forward to 2020. Old Second South is another one that was recommended that the entire length from Forbes to Story be redone in 2021. You'll recall that this one popped up as well for some additional gas tax funds. We're proposing that instead of doing the entire length next year, we would like to do it over 3 years, so do 3 separate sections of single surface treatment over 3 years. Structures and bridges, we just have one here. You'll recall last year.
Excuse me, one
Yep,
question.
sorry.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Sorry, and through you, Director Coleman, what are the additional costs associated with lapsing a project over 3 years? Is there, I just know if it's showing up to a job site and leaving a job site, is there a percentage essentially that we're looking at rather than doing it all at once?
What we feel is spreading this one over 3 years. We do have surface treatment projects throughout the budget for the next 3 years. So it wouldn't necessarily be showing up to this job and then coming back a year later. It will be tendered with these various other surface treatment jobs that we've proposed. As well, we have ones listed in 2021 and 2022. So we feel that if we combine them, we can still realize some cost savings that way.
Portion between Story and Forbes, what's happening to that?
That we're proposing a single surface treatment over 3 years, so we'll divide it up, and we'll do the worst section in 2021, which is, I think, was near the railway tracks from what I recall, and then reevaluate and do the next worst section, and then the last section in the third year.
So you're dividing the Forbes to Horseshoe into 3? Is that the way I interpret it, or?
Yes, sorry, misspoke. Yes, the full length into 3.
Okay.
So the St. Vincent Street project, you'll recall that 2019 was, the design was approved to look at this. The design has begun with the construction proposed in 2020. The rehabilitation, we haven't seen drawings yet, but what we expect that we will see will be obviously patching the deteriorated concrete, possibly eliminating the expansion joints, so that closes things up so that water can't get in there. Repair some abutments, girders, remove the railings and the sidewalk and upgrade that, and then waterproof and pave. So that's would be planned for the summer of 2020. As a heads up, it will be down to one lane, so there'll be temporary signal lights there.
Sure.
Moving on to water infrastructure. So the Minising and Hillsdale, we have new wells listed there, but it's a bit of a story. So the Minising water system was built in 1973, additional works in 87, 92, 95, and 2004. The system consists of 5 wells, 4 of which are operational. The 5th was drilled and found to be dry. So as we sit right now, we have the infrastructure, but we do not have a well. So what we're proposing, now that Minising is built out, we're proposing a capacity study for 2020 to determine if there is a requirement for this 5th well or an additional standpipe, or just, I guess, the status of the whole system. Should that be required, then we will look for budget approval in 2021 and 2022 for EA, design, and construction. Hillsdale, very similar. That's depending on what happens in the near future, the 10-year planning window. We're looking at the peak water demand for Hillsdale will be near its rated design capacity for the water supply system. So based on projected future water demands, we are looking to do a capacity study in 2020 and then move forward with any requirements in the coming years.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn. And just for clarification, the Hillsdale new well, is that the Castle Drive location?
Mayor Allen, through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin, that will depend on what the design from the subdividers or from the developer comes in as, but yes, there are 2 at Castle Drive. There's also some unused wells at Scarlet Line, so we would have to look at their proposal.
Follow on?
Yes, and thank you, Marilyn, through you to Clerk Chaperone. As in the past, for those of you who are not aware, my husband decided to buy a piece of property which surrounds that well, which does not have 3-phase to it yet, so I need to declare conflict on that. So I don't know if we can pull that separately moving forward, or I just don't know how to approve a budget and vote on a budget when there's one line item that to some people might appear as pecuniary interest. So I can take that up with the clerk later, but if we can just be cognizant to have that pulled separately, that would be great.
Thank you.
So the water meter replacements program started in 2016. We are getting down to the final changeouts and expect that the final changeouts will be completed in 2020. Wastewater. So the upgrades for the Elmvale main pumping station. We have started, obviously, on the new lift station. Falling in line with that, we're expecting increased flows at the main pumping station. We do experience difficulties now handling peak wet weather flows. There is a history of some flooding, and additional flows are expected from the new development to the very southwest of the municipality. or South Village, I should say. So the Elmvale main pumping station will be incapable of maintaining the operational capacities. So it's proposed to review the capacity and begin the design for the upgrade or replacement. The Royal Oaks wastewater treatment plant is located just off the intersection of Budds Mill and Snow Valley Road, in the community of Snow Valley. It is primarily a package plant with one expansion completed to double its capacity. Once the raw sewage reaches the plant, it flows through the inlet channel equipped with an inlet channel screw type screen. We're having difficulties keeping up with some of the rags that's coming through the system. So for 2020, we are proposing that we do a capacity review and do some pipe modifications. And then moving forward in 2021 or 22, depending on the status of the capacity review, we will look at expanding the flow equalization. The inflow and infiltration project, this 2020 will be the third year of the project. We have now completed the CCTV of the entire Elmvale sanitary sewer system, with a few, exception of a few easements that we can't get into, so we're working to get into those. We've done several high priority in situ repairs to try and reduce the flows to the plant. What we're proposing for 2020 is to continue with the in situ repairs that have been identified from the past 2 years. The tertiary filters at the Elmvale wastewater treatment plant, there's currently 4 sand filters, of which 2 are out of commission. This has been identified in the 20-year capital project submitted, or capital plan submitted by the Ontario Clean Water Agency. Last year, or I guess late in 2018, they did a study to determine what would be the best type of filters given the conditions that the plant experiences. They've recommended moving to disc filters, so that this was, we can replace 4 sand filters with 2 disc filters. Unfortunately, you'll see the cost is significantly higher than what was expected. The 20-year capital plan, I believe, showed a replacement, rehabilitation cost, which unfortunately the sand filters can't be rehabilitated, and we'll have to look at the replacement. I think that's the last one. Oh, so the gravity sewer replacement repair work, in the 20-year capital plan, there was $157,000 slated for each year for gravity replacement work, and we're proposing for 2020 that we roll it into the Lawrence Street project that I spoke of earlier.
Okay, so on to our Parks and Rec area. I'll give our Director of Public Works a break, and if our Manager of Parks and Facilities is able to speak to a couple of these.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council, in regards to trail development, there's money set aside annually for ongoing rehabilitation of trails and development throughout our community. We have the North Simcoe Rail Trail that runs through our entire township, which has not been maintained to the highest standards in the past. So there's a lot of issues along that trail system. As you can see, there's a washout, a culvert section, some gates and stuff have been removed and vandalized by ATVers. We also have other trail systems throughout the township and amongst new development that are required. So trail rerouting, removal of trees in certain areas. We do have hazardous trees along our trail sides that need to be attended for the safety of our users and to reduce liability. And other than that, provide safe recreational trails throughout our community.
What is that picture on the left? What is that?
So that's a culvert, a washout on the trail.
Oh, I see.
That was attended to and repaired, but there's ongoing issues in that location.
So the 30,000 under 33 trail development, does that take into account the repair of all the gates that get torn down by recreational vehicles?
Again, I don't have much history on where the money's, or why the money's been located to that area, so I'm not sure if CAO Schmidt can speak on that, but yes, that would go towards ongoing initiatives to replace gate systems and stuff along that trail system.
CEO?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the funds that we're talking about here in the capital is really for the new development of trails. So the ongoing maintenance of these existing ones would be provided for in our operating budget. So the 30 grand that we're talking about is more for, again, the new development and or enhancements of existing trails throughout the community.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to Ryan. That trail there, it's the rail trail through Phelpson area. You know yourself, it's widely used year round. A lot of our trails are. When you're looking at this, are you in talks with our public works? Because I see some of this work where maybe some of our public works could go in with that new, if we have the new brush head and cutting some of the brush back or fixing up that culvert, things like that, or do you just go and sub it all out? Like, is there things that we can do in-house to save us money and keep our trails in shape? I think that's the question I'm asking.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ritchie, just kind of a past history of the past 2 years, we did purchase a pulverizer to go behind a tractor. We have not subbed out any repair and maintenance to that trail system. Our staff have done everything ourselves through, we do have an arm that goes down and cuts the brush back, so we maintain that. We have maintained the surface, and so there are, again, the gate systems, we repaired all ourselves, but again, sometimes it's it's like a Band-Aid, and we're looking at a better system to go in place for gate systems, and again, that money is utilized through new trail development as well.
Follow on?
So what's the policy between working with the public works in some of these projects? I can see where there would be a need to bring in one of our excavators or dozer or backhoe, or can you just share with us, would you go to public works? Would you bid that out? I think that's something I know I'd like to know anyways.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ritchie. We do work in conjunction with Public Works back and forth. So if there's areas that we can do within our means, we definitely seek that out first. Again, this is kind of new to on my plate, and I would look at the trail system in more detail and identify those areas where we can get our staff in conjunction with Public Works to revitalize some of the trail systems, but looking at other areas, and I'm going to speak on the gate systems, more or less designing a proper gate system that kind of is more aesthetically pleasing and, keeps people from, well, it reduces vandalism to that particular gate system.
I know we got a lot on our plate here, but I'm just off the top of my head, if there was a project worth, say, $15,000 and you had the Public Works do it, would we pay the Public Works? Would we hold on to that? How would the money move back and forth across that? How would they be awarded and get the job done and we kept it in-house? I'm just,
CEO Schmidt,
you
can
could
clear
share
that up?
some light on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Ritchie. So one of the most recent projects that I can think of, and maybe not the biggest, but it was a collaboration between Parks and Rec and Public Works, was at the Midhurst Pavilion. So prior to the Autumn Fest happening, essentially there was an extension of the parking lot that we wanted cleaned up due to potential liability of people walking across from Doran Park to the Midhurst Pavilion. So in tandem with Parks and Rec and Public Works came over and cleared out an additional area of that site and actually created a walkway, a larger walkway from the Doran Park tennis parking lot to the Midhurst Pavilion. In those particular cases, because the funding is essentially taxpayer dollar, we don't end up charging back and forth internally. Again, we could, but at the end of the day, it's coming from the same pocket, if you will. So in those particular cases, we don't typically do that. There may be instances whereby, we might have a growth-related project, DC-related project, whereby, if it makes sense that some of our staff can go in and do some of the work, then we'll assign our staff time to that project. And in those particular cases, the cost would be assigned to the project because it is DC eligible, so hence it's actually some recovery that the township can get through those projects. But so those are a couple of examples.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to you to Manager Anderson. You know the trail that runs off of Old Orchard Road. This summer, there was a couple of times the gates had been removed and cars driven down the trail. People set up camp, bonfires, and it borders the menacing wetlands. So the need for improved gate systems is extremely important, especially down that way. There's been lots of needles and needle caps found this summer. But secondly, there is a place, and I know I forwarded pictures to you, where there's a menacing wetlands lookout, and the posts were rotten and falling down. There was graffiti, the benches are rotten, everything's overgrown. And you mentioned that there was a partnership with, and I'm forgetting who the partnership was with, that you were going to reach out and see if there was something that could be done to improve that site. Nothing's been done so far, but not to say that you're not working on it. I just don't know where we are. Thanks.
Manager Anderson?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Moore, are you referring to the trail system that, actually the lookout at the high end of George Johnson? Okay.
No, off
So
of Old
yeah,
Orchard.
Yeah, so the trail system. So again, I'm not 100% familiar with that. I have walked in that area once, and if my memory serves me correct, there was an individual that built that kind of lookout, and that's something that our staff can definitely get in there next year to revitalize and pay more attention to. Again, this year kind of was, I guess, an important year where we actually had a staff member dedicated to trail maintenance, and it was more or less for the actual surfacing of the trails and the exteriors and stuff. But moving forward, we're looking at more along the lines if there's monument benches and lookout areas and stuff to kind of focus a little more on those areas.
Deputy Mayor Cog, follow on?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I will forward to you the pictures then again, so you'll have something fresh to reference, okay? Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Coglin?
And thank you to Manager Anderson. It might be worthwhile to reach out to the Springwater Sports Heritage Committee. I do believe that the bench and the lookout, the bridge portion of it was, I just said his name. Anyway, there's a gentleman on that committee who, it's a family member of his that was created for. And then if not, it was Harold Parker on a tour that he took Mayor Allen and I on that pointed out the look at. And that was a community donated initiative, which, as we all know, then becomes a municipal responsibility. So that would be something for council to look at as to whether we revitalize it or if it's a safety hazard, remove it. So definitely Parker Adams. Adams is the last name. So that family they have their name on all those plaques out there, so.
Okay. Continuing?
So the next project is project 2017-21, which is our park playground upgrades. And again, this is a typical annual provision that we have in the budget for upgrades to our park playgrounds. So at any point in time, every year, we simply probably look at one or two sites that we end up upgrading on an annual basis. So again, it is an annual program that we put funds aside for. The project 2020-45, not sure if Mr. Anderson wanted to speak to this one here, the Dorn Park tennis court lights.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. The Dorn Park tennis lights are I don't know the actual age of them. They have been, I guess, in use since those tennis courts have been built. Sorry, I didn't get the actual date of when they were actually constructed. However, there has been ongoing issues with these lights, and the previous director, Ron, identified this in the capital budgets for replacement for various reasons. We're challenged right now with replacement ballast for these lights. I was only able to source out through a company out of Brampton, and I actually had to drive to this location twice this past summer to pick the ballast up. So through that process, I have to contact an electrician. We have to rent a lift, and then we have to obviously replace the ballast. As you all know, moving forward, we're looking at energy efficiencies in our buildings and out in our parks, and this is part of an efficiency thing that I think is a need for replacement. There is complications too with the user groups not being able to use the tennis courts at night because of safety issues when the lights go down, and it's it's a time constraint to get the electricians in and coordinate all that work. So that's the purpose moving forward, to get this lighting system in place.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, and through you to Manager Anderson. The, last year, the Elmvale actual replacement or resurfacing of the tennis courts, and council voted to take the project and have the resurfacing done in 1 year and the lights replaced in another. And I've seen that's been moved back another year. Is there a way, or would it be cost beneficial to us to have both the Dorn and Elmvale lights done at the same time?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. It could potentially be beneficial, and we could definitely look at, when do we have it slated in the budget for Elmvale? 2020 as well? 2021? Okay, so that's something that, obviously could potentially be a benefit in some cost savings. I don't know how much. So I can't really speak to that.
Follow on? No? Oh, sorry. CAO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So I guess, from an acquisition perspective and purchasing new lights, we could definitely try to look at putting something out to market and trying to acquire the lights themselves. The installation probably as well, but again, not knowing the exact dimensions, if you will, of both. They might be slightly different, there might be some differences there, but I think we could try to put something out there in the market to try to achieve some efficiencies in that regards for both of those projects. I think they're somewhat similar. There may be some, like I said, some small items that might be a little different, but for the most part, they should be fairly similar.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just looking back last year, part of the issue over at Elmvale was that they weren't able to retrofit the current fixtures that were there or utilize the poles for the LED lights. And I don't know if it's the same situation here at Dorn Park, or are these lights here capable of being retrofitted with LEDs?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral. They can definitely be retrofitted at this location. The poles are in good condition. The poles at Elmville are not as in good condition. So everything that's in place there, electrical components and stuff, are all good. So basically, we're looking at just replacing the heads on those poles.
Okay, continuing.
So the next project we have is the replace Homer Bear Park rink boards. So I'm not sure if Mr. Anderson. oh,
There's
sorry.
a subsequent question, I believe. Councillor.
Sorry, Mayor Allen, it's just reflecting back on Alvale. I think it was roughly $60,000 to put new poles and lights up, and the ask here for Doran Park is $75,000, so I'm just, I don't understand that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So my understanding was, and I'd have to double check, I believe the full project cost for Elmville was $150,000, which included the resurfacing of the courts as well as the lights. So again, the specifics of whether it was $60,000 for the lights and the post, I'd have to double check on that. But I believe council had recommended to phase that over 2 years. And again, a portion of that was related to the resurfacing of the courts, so.
Deputy Mayor Conlon?
Thank you, and through you to Manager Anderson again. So, understanding that the Doran Park lights were most recently replaced, or some of them this summer, would there be potential to defer this project to 2021 with the Elmvale project so that we can move forward in a joint tender? Or do you feel that this is something that needs to happen this year in Doran? Or is it something, I mean, it's 75,000 taxation, so is it something we can defer? I'm also gonna be saying the next thing about the Barrett board, so might as well say it about this one too. But if it is something that we could defer by a year with no implication to the users, if those lights are good now for a bit, if we could defer it for a year and roll 2 projects into one, I could see that as a benefit.
CAO? Or Director Anderson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. I don't see it being an issue, deferring it. Again, all these items were on the slate for this year. So, you know, I was trying to move the projects forward. I think it's a good idea that we could potentially, you know, have a cost savings on this, and then kind of partner those projects together. In saying that, you know, I can't tell you for sure if those lights are going to last, because the deteriorating ballast in the lights. So, you know, there might be expenditures there to replace, you know, potentially 2 to 3 more ballasts in that area, which again is a cost on the operating budget, for the lift, for the electrician, for the ballast, so on and so forth.
Follow on?
Thank you. So in your opinion, continue to move forward with one this year and a second the following year? Or move both to 2021 or pull the other one up to well, we can't because Elmville's not done yet, so just curious.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So if the intent is to try to obviously obtain some efficiencies, that is something that you can word in the RFP document where you could potentially award to one contractor, having dollars set aside for Doran Park and then other dollars set aside for Elmville. It's a matter of whether or not council's going to approve the expenditure in 2020 for us to be able to do that, right? So it is something that definitely we can doctor into an RFP, if you will, and see what contractors are willing to move into that type of an agreement with us. It's just we would have to phrase it in that fashion and also have some commitment from council to make sure that we have funds potentially set aside in order to do that. Yep, sure. Okay. So the next item is the Homer Bear Park rink boards. So Mr. Anderson, you want to speak to that one, or?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, this board system was constructed by a volunteer group, I think over 5 years ago, if my memory serves me correct. As you can see, there's support systems that come down. This park is now a high usage. The splash pad is at this location. There's kids constantly running back and forth. There was screw nails and nails exposed that our staff had to attend to because, again, the volunteer group, it was constructed fairly quickly, and I think, you know, it was a great initiative by the volunteer group. But looking at the overall, I guess, usage of this park, aesthetics, the safety, and the ongoing maintenance issues around this board system, basically, you know, it's staff time to trim the grass around all these supports, and what's happening at the wood supports is when the trimmer lines and stuff hit them, it obviously deteriorates the wood a little bit more every year. There's fencing at the end that it's just ongoing maintenance for our staff that, in my opinion, is unnecessary. We're looking at other communities that have, you know, the newer board systems. There's pretty much zero maintenance on them at this point. We do have a lot of rinks in our community, which again is a good initiative. But in my opinion, I do think we should continue with this board system just for the sole purpose of the use of this park. Pickleball groups use this. Again, it's a rink that's utilized quite a bit in the winter months, and just to reduce the liability on the township with any, you know, potential tripping hazards or, you know, exposed boards, because the boards are not kind of level throughout the whole board system.
Councillor Ritchie?
Mary Ellen, I just want to add to that, something we'll have to, for staff to keep in mind when that development back in the corner there of Bernie Stills comes on stream. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that start here in the next couple of years. That's going to put a big need on that there, and then we'll have to do something. So, and they're getting close to doing something there too. So, just want to mention that. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Colgan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you. So these boards will not be repurposed, they will be removed?
Yes, they will be removed.
Okay. I have difficulty spending $80,000. Is it 11 outdoor rinks that we have now in rotation? And while I completely support the group that came in and made this possible for the residents, we are potentially putting in a washroom at this facility. We just put in a splash pad at the facility, and we have many hamlets and communities to attend to. I see this as, looking at it, I can just imagine a nightmare to maintain the park. My question would be, if it is a hazard, to remove it. There are a lot of communities that don't have boards. If it is a hazard and it needs to go, it's a difficult decision to make, because once there is an amenity in place, it becomes a level of service and people expect it. But $80,000 is a large amount of money for an outdoor rink. Understanding now that a lot of the users of that will be potentially in EDHS, now that facility is available. So this, to me, I don't want to spend money on washrooms and money on boards in the same area. I'm not saying that it doesn't need to be done. I can look at it and tell that it does need to be done at some point. But $80,000 for outdoor rinks, and really, when you think about a rotation, and we talked about it a couple years ago at budget, and we're looking at potentially every year to year and a half having to replace outdoor rink boards in our municipality. And that, to me, is a large expense. it's nice to have. I would like to see it maintained. If we could maybe even work with the groups and just put the backstops behind the nets like there are in other communities, but that amount of money, and we don't have the facility, we're not replacing the boards in the arena, so it's not like we have an opportunity. These are the old boards from the arena, from what I understand. It was a repurpose, it was an initiative from the community, so I get why it happened, but I would like there to be a discussion amongst council as to whether it's a necessity this year or if it can come back up into budget the year following. But that seems like a large amount of money for something that's used. It's well used, I use it often, but it just seems like a lot of money for me.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a comment really that when we installed the boards at the Grenfell Hall, we sourced used boards, secondhand boards, for a quarter of the price. And they've lasted probably going on, no, they're not great, right, Ryan? But I would say 10 years. And they're in certain need of repair, but not replacement. So I would, certainly support sourcing some secondhand boards from a municipality maybe that has a lot more money. Thank you.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just curious whether or not we're debating these issues now, because I know that there are some motions specific to these coming up, and if that's the case, we might want to debate them at that time, or now, because I've got some stuff to say. Should I wait?
Let's wait.
Thank you.
Okay. And next then?
So I believe the last project we have here is the compressor number 2 for the Elmville Arena. So maybe Mr. Anderson can speak to that one as well.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. This compressor was installed in 1994 when the arena was retrofitted. There is industry standard 20-year replacement recommendations for life cycles of refrigeration equipment. So my recommendation moving forward would be to replace this because they're obviously with the age of the equipment and the hazardous chemical that goes through this, which is the ammonia. So it's a primary refrigerant that goes through this and gets heated into a high pressure gas through the system. There's major safety issues if we don't look at upgrading our facility, our equipment at the proper time, and potential deaths that could occur if it does malfunction. And yeah, basically if that compressor goes down during, the months of August, September, even October, there could be a potential that we have to shut the ice down and lose revenues from the ice rentals.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Manager Anderson, sorry. I'm just curious, we obviously have these maintained on a fairly regular basis, I would think. Would it not be maybe a good idea? Sometimes things that are, been working great for a long time tend to keep on working that way for a while. It might be good to get an opinion from the person that services it, whether or not, it's up for or he might say, or she might say that it's a really good unit and you should hold on to it. My other question would be, what type of coolant is actually used in it?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral. If you're referring to coolant, these units are cooled by water. So water goes through the water through the heads to cool the units.
Can we call it refrigerant then?
So the primary refrigerant that goes through this, I referred to as ammonia. So that runs through the unit, and I can elaborate on that if need be. So I have spoke to our servicing company, Simco Refrigeration, and the mechanic, and he also has advised that we should consider replacing this. And Ron actually had this on the slate to be replaced. I think approximately 5 or 6 years ago, we did have a compressor go down, and we had to pull money, if my memory serves me correct, from reserves to replace a compressor in the arena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just the last couple of slides here, I just want to run you through where we're at with the one-time additional gas tax funds and the modernization funds, and that kind of will conclude the formal presentation that we have for the budget, and then we can get into some of the motions and other dialogue and discussion. So on the one-time additional gas tax funds, you may recall that the township did receive approximately $580,000 in additional one-time gas tax dollars in 2019. Essentially, how those funds have been allocated, actually today, the bus shelter in Elmville was installed, so $7,500 was allocated towards that project. The Floss Road 10 West project, approximately just under $384,000 was allocated to that. And the Hillsdale Crosswalk, approximately $189,000 was apportioned to that. So that essentially takes up the full $580 that was received in 2019. On the modernization, so these funds have many different names. So modernization, small and rural, efficiency, and whatever other tag we want to put to it. Essentially, in 2019, in March of 2019, we received just under $677,000 from the province for this modernization fund. To date, council has allocated $13,000 towards the new scheduling and booking software, as well as some additional dollars for the Hillsdale pedestrian signal. So at the end of the day, we have essentially $628,000 in change still remaining to be allocated. Through discussions with members of council, there have been some projects proposed by members of council as well as by staff. So I won't necessarily go through each one of these, but as you can see here, there's a varying number of projects that are being requested. And on this last page here, it essentially sums up the total proposed projects at approximately $768,000. So based on 628 being available, we're obviously in the hole or in a deficit of approximately $140,000. So I think there, as item 9.2 on the agenda, speaks to the modernization funding. So I think what we're looking for is council's direction as to how these funds may be utilized in 2020. The other thing I guess we need to keep into consideration when we look at this is we did on our December 4th council meeting, council approved the township in moving forward in submitting an EOI, expression of interest, for the new municipal modernization intake. So that was submitted last Friday, and so we'll see what the outcome of that is. One of the criteria, as we mentioned, is the province will want to know how we utilize these original dollars. So I'm not trying to put pressure on council to spend money, but there may be the consideration where if we don't spend this money, we may not be in a position or a favorable position to get the additional intake money. So I put that out there for council to consider. With that said, Mr. Mayor, that concludes the formal presentation that we have for members of council. And I believe we were going to look at some of the capital and operating motions that have
Okay.
been submitted.
Thank you. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm just wondering on that particular list, are we going to deal with it again later on? Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to 8.2, and there are different recommendations in no particular order. So starting with the recommendation, the second recommendation down, submitted by Councillor Ritchie, gravel road conversion to hardtop, Floss 6 West from Vigo Road to Atkinson Road. So it's moved by Councillor Ritchie. We need a seconder before we get discussing. Councillor Cabral? Okay, Councillor Ritchie, I'll turn it to you first.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Councillor Cabral and I, we on a Tuesday afternoon, it was nice and bright, and we did a drive and took a look at the roads, and we were back there. This road here, I receive a lot of complaints from the people that live back there. Off the top of my head, I can count at least between 8 and 10 people that live on the road. This is a main artery going into Wasaga Beach, into the back way. Park Place has a large development in there, and from there over to Klondike. So there's a lot of traffic coming out of there. coming up that road, and then they either continue on out to County Road 29, or they'll take Vigo Road. And Vigo Road was done back in our second term, and I'm guessing, I'd say 2015, 2016, we did it, and then something happened that it didn't take up, so they came back and they did it again. It was almost $1 million, but we did all of Vigo Road. So from 92, going straight south almost to the bend on the 4th, we redid Vigo Road. So it was, I'd say, in decent shape. This here, it needs a hard top conversion, and I'll be speaking to three other projects I'd like to see deferred till next year, so we could address this. And another thing I want council to keep in mind, there are several gravel pits in the area that use this road from the Phelpson area to get out to Wasaga Beach, where a lot of development is taking place. And with heavy trucks, it beats our road up. And I know different times, and I want to thank the Director of Public Works, like any time, I've sent an email off about a concern. There's a grader that goes out and gravels it up, but today would have been a perfect day when it's wet like it is to go and to do a drive-by on that, but I'd like to see us move forward with this 2020 budget. It's a road that's much needed, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, there are several roads in motions that have been brought forward that have been added, and other roads have been taken away. So, do you want to just deal with them in order, one-on-one, or do you want to have a commentary with respect to the roads as has been presented in the budget versus these roads?
I believe that was posed to me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, we're in council's hands as to how you want to proceed with this, but I think at the end of the day, too, my concern with this is that, not knowing what the cost of this is, I don't know what I'm supposed to be putting in the budget, to be quite honest with you. And again, no disrespect to members of council, staff may be in a position to provide some estimates or ballpark figures at this stage. So I could ask our Director of Public Works to provide that. It's just, we do need numbers set aside in order to move forward with this, because I don't know how much this could cost. So I need a little more detail, I guess. So.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just, I had it written down here, and again, as per measurements from the county's interactive mapping, it's 3.12 kilometers is what it is. But having said that, maybe if we could just set this aside and come back, I was hoping that if some of these other motions that I'm bringing forward to delay, if we could ease up the funds there, then we could go back and address this. And I think by deferring these other ones will tell us if we can fix this one here for the following year. That might be a way of addressing this. We can just set it aside and deal with the other ones if it's okay. I'm in the hands here of you.
Okay, that sounds doable. Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just wanted to comment in support of Councillor Ritchie. Reviewing the information that the agricultural folks put through, there is mention in there that they would definitely like to see council recognize their needs, and for council to actually put back into play gravel conversions to hardtop. In addition, I'm in possession of a letter that was given to me by Mr. Partridge, and basically seeking the same type of relief on behalf of the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture. So I just wanted to just to kind of state that this is something that the farmers are looking for. They're looking for our assistance, and they're starting to feel that not just the farmers, the people that are living on these rural roads, that they're being left out in the cold. So I would like to see something move forward as well towards the 10-year capital plan.
CAO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Cabral for bringing that forward. My mistake, and I apologize. So added to the agenda this evening were some comments from the agricultural forum that was held on November 27th. I believe it was November 27th, so, or 28th, I believe it was. So again, no disrespect to those individuals. There were 5 different comments, and Councillor Cabral is correct that there was some comments there made with respect to conversion of gravel to hardtop for council's consideration. So again, I didn't want to miss that piece. Sorry.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And my apologies to council and staff for not putting this motion forward sooner. But I did put a motion forward just as the meeting started for the gravel conversion to hardtop for Grenfell Road. Small road, just a little road, but we've had some difficulty there recently. The grader was out today. I've had complaints about that. And so I think we need to consider that too. It's the only road in Ward 4 that is still gravel, and it's a main thoroughfare. It could be a main thoroughfare especially, but I would like that to be considered also. Thank you.
The, I just have a problem with adding these when we don't have any, or considering these, when we don't have any idea of the cost with respect to these. So, I mean, we're considering putting something in a budget and we don't know a dollar amount. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, Marilyn, and through you. The identified projects that are, the recommendations that are coming forward through council this evening, where are they identified in the existing roads need study, and how close is our asset management study from being able to provide council with an idea of, I feel, and there is discourse, I'm having people now coming forward and be like, hey, can you pave my road too? And that's where it becomes, I mean, yes, I believe that the people that drive the roads every day are the best to understand what the needs are of a road. But I think that there needs to be input from the professionals too, and we need to have a system understanding that this is the plan, this is what we're going to do every year in order to make sure. And I do agree that there's weather conditions that happen or more erosion than typical or than anticipated. But if we keep, it feels one-offing. It feels like we're just adding things to a budget without fully understanding what the cost is, or whether there's culverts in that road that are being done at the same time, or what the plan is. I have difficulty adding it. So I guess my question would be that where are these projects identified or if they are currently, if we're moving them up 1 or 2 years, or if we're moving them into existence at all, and where or when we can expect more information to come to council so that we don't have this happening every budget, so that we can agree or vote on a 6-year capital plan rather than a rolling 1-year plan.
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the first shot, and if our Director of Public Works wants to add anything, by all means. So I guess what I'll say first of all is if you look at the 10-year capital plan, you don't see any conversions of gravel to hardtop for a reason. And I believe the discussion that we've had around this is that there is only so many dollars in the township's coffers, if you will, and or are we willing to tax our taxpayers for some of this stuff? The idea is through the roads needs study, it identified all of our road systems, and at the end of the day, we have a certain inventory of hardtop roads that we're already trying to maintain, and we don't even have enough money to maintain those. So why are we adding additional dollars to convert even more roads to a hardtop that we can't even maintain the existing infrastructure that we have today? So again, if council wants to or proposes to increase taxes to try to do these things, then by all means. It's not pie in the sky planning here. We do look at some of this stuff from a roads needs study perspective. The asset management, that we essentially just purchased the software. We're in the process of trying to get that software up and running. We're hopefully going to be in a position by this time next year to have a much better conversation with council, but it's going to take some time to get that information in that system. I think, as I told you before, we have over $150 million worth of infrastructure that we're responsible for, and that's probably underestimated, to be quite honest with you. There's only so many dollars to go around, and that's the reality of it. But if council wants to put money towards these things, no, we can only defend it for so long, if you will. At the end of the day, if you're getting the phone calls, the residents are calling you complaining, you think it should be done,
Okay, Director Coleman, anything to add before I go to Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Marilyn. Just through you to council, when this came up earlier in the spring, we had traffic counts carried out on the existing roads as they sit. Just for your information, Floss Road 6 West was 136 cars for 24 hours, and Grenfell Road was 248 cars for 24 hours.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I know this is an issue, but it was actually council of days gone by that wanted to convert all the roads to hardtop. Then there was something that came up, I don't know the exact year, and council was asked to make a determination on it, and council of the day didn't. I'm going back to maybe 2012 or 2013. After that, there were still some gravel road conversions that took place. And the gravel road conversions were still in the 6-year capital plan and projected into the future. But between the 6-year capital plan being reformulated into a 10-year capital plan, all of the gravel road conversions were dropped. And I also want to make mention that the road needs study assesses gravel roads, but they don't recommend anything as far as a gravel road is concerned. They just tell you what the state of it is and whether you might have to put more gravel on it, might need to do some more grading down the road. Much the same as they assess the ones that are already paved. What are the rehabilitation needs there and what kind of projections are going to be down the road. Gravel top conversions are something that we're doing for the residents. It's not necessarily something that we're doing because a consultant says we should, because the consultant isn't saying that. We've never asked the consultant to say that. But I think what we need to do is look at what the road needs report created, because it was only based on the road needs for hard tops. There's also information in there dealing with the gravel roads and how they need to be maintained. But when we're talking about a gravel road conversion, say it's the 6th and Grenfell Road, I think what we need to do is look at all the other paved roads that are getting rehabilitated, prioritize them, maybe take a couple of the top best ones off of the list that might be able to wait a couple of years or whatever, and squeak a gravel road conversion in there. The Hemson report clearly stated that a gravel road costs way more money to maintain than a paved road. Significantly more, I might add. I don't know the exact figures, but I do recall reading it. And with respect to traffic counts on gravel roads, they can be misleading. I think the magic number seems to be maybe around a couple of hundred when you should do it, I guess. But it also states it could be as low as 50, depending on what type of vehicles are actually using that gravel road, be it tandem dump trucks coming from the quarry pit, or on the 10th where I am, our own trucks going back and forth full of gravel from the pit, as well as DLG and everybody else who's taking aggregate somewhere else. I just think that the way that the gravel conversions were dropped, I don't think that was something that, had council been aware that that was something that had happened, council may then at that time, I think we're hearing from some council members now that that's something that maybe shouldn't have happened. And I think there is a way to accommodate everybody. I think there's a way to try and do it by prioritizing what the road needs study provided us, and the roads that are at the top that we were thinking about doing, the best ones that we're still going to rehabilitate, well, let's put those off maybe for a year. And like I say, we can squeak in a conversion here and there. And I'm only speaking to conversions that go somewhere, not necessarily dead ends like Matheson or the dead end of Pools Road. Those folks might not be interested in gravel, but I can certainly tell you our roads that go from one end to the other and are broken up with pavement and then a stretch of gravel and then pavement again, it doesn't make sense.
Director Coleman, am I correct in saying that there's an updated roads study that is going to be happening in 2020? Is that correct?
Thank you, Marilyn. Yes, we are proposing the updated road needs study for 2020. Just for the record, the 2017 road needs study did review the gravel roads and did recommend some conversions in the future.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I think we said we were going to put this aside and then move to the next one and come back to this, right? So the next one was again submitted by Councillor Ritchie, reproject 2020-08. We need a seconder for that, please. Councillor Moore. And that is regarding Coghlan Road from Horseshoe Valley Road to Rainbow Valley Road. Be it resolved that the project 2020-08 Coghlan Road from Horseshoe Valley Road to Rainbow Valley Road be removed from the 2020 capital budget and deferred to the 2021 capital budget. So, Councillor Ritchie, I'll turn it to you.
Mayor Allen, I've driven this, I drove it tonight. There's some areas there that could be looked at, but when I prioritize that particular road, there's 4 people on it. When I prioritize that road compared to back where I'm asking for, I think that could, I would like to see that deferred. If that could be deferred till next year, if the next one down could be deferred till next year, and the one on the 10th deferred until, that would loosen up enough money. I had it figured out at $796,000 to address the back 6, and it could also address Grenville as well too. And those would be 2 projects addressed, and wait till next year and move forward and get these done. And that would, like as I said, these roads, like Councillor Cabral said, on the 6th, might have not had the traffic, but when you take a tandem truck, you take 16, 20 metric tons, they're running up and down the road every day, and at all hours of the year, it busts things up, and it'd be much needed there to get that fixed and identify some of these ones that are critical, and these are critical.
Other comments? Deputy Mayor Coghlan?
Just 2. The traffic count on Coghlan Road. And before you do that, I do know that 25% of the people that live on that road would like it converted back to gravel, so just saying. I apologize to my husband, but I have no problem with this being deferred. I do know that it is highly used. I know there are 4 people that live on it as opposed to the 6 on other roads that are being suggested added to the budget. I'm just curious what the traffic count is on that.
Director Coleman? Looking at that, Councillor Cabral has his hand up.
Actually, Mayor Allen, I have that number.
Okay, go ahead. fire.
Although I can't comment that it's the most recent, but the number from the annual average daily traffic from the road needs study was 285.
That was a daily, hourly?
Yes, annual average daily
Annual average daily. Deputy Mayor?
was 285.
And I think these are reasons why I would need more information before I support any of these, because if we're pulling roads out, and this is very awkward for me, I'm sure that everybody can tell by the name of the road. I live on the road, so, but I do know that other members of council have sat here, we all live on a road in the municipality, but if we're pulling roads out that have 285 traveling it a day to put roads in that have 136 traveling it a day, I really think that there needs to be some sort of bigger or better picture as to why we're making the decisions we're making. And again, there's no dollar number attached to it, so just curious.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I did have questions with respect to this in regards to, I guess, what was being done and what was initially proposed. And a couple of things that came up. And the reason I have that figure 285 here is if I read it correctly, the surface treatment's going from low-class bitumen to high-class bitumen. And according to well, another road needs study that was done by a different company, but they did include a chart. The average, annual average daily traffic at time of doing the work for low-class bitumen should be between 400 and 700. And for high-class bitumen, it should be between 700 and 2,000. And that's why I'm kind of wondering why it's so expensive, because the number there was 285, so I'm wondering why we're actually spending more money on a higher grade of material when it's not necessary.
Okay, I'll go back to Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. The 2013 traffic count that I have is 427 cars. That was from 2013. I can't find anything more recent than that. To answer Councillor Cabral's question, bear with me here, I've got the 2017 road needs study up. And they recommended that it be done in if I recall correctly, 2021. As I mentioned earlier, we suffered some freeze thaw last winter that we've recommended moving it up. Whether it be, certainly we could explore doing a surface treatment over a hot asphalt for that road, given the traffic count. We could do a more updated traffic count and review the surface treatment versus hot mix asphalt question.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you very much, Director Coleman. The other issue here was, I guess when I look and I saw that there was DC funds and gas tax involved, I was trying to see where the improvement was that would, because kind of what I'd been told, and I apologize if maybe that was just a particular example, was if we were widening a road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, DC funding would be available to it, but if it was just to fix it, it didn't count. So I'm kind of leaving myself in your hands, trying to figure out how that came about. I did ask for a little bit more of an answer, to be a little bit more elaborate, but it was last minute, and I don't think I got it back, but I do apologize if you sent it before I left the house to come here.
CEO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Cabral. So the idea is when we updated the 2018 DC background study, so my understanding is because of the current level of service that road is providing today, is at a much lower level than what it would be. So we'd be actually reconstructing the road and providing a higher level of service, and hence there would be some growth component related to that. Again, the example of widening a road is the easy example that most can obviously easily understand. But in this particular case, my understanding is you have a what I would call maybe a lower level of service, and we're proposing to reconstruct to a higher level of service, which could accommodate potentially more vehicle traffic. So in that particular case, the idea is that a portion of that could be funded from development charges.
Let me make a comment, please. What would be the timing of the road needs study? What I'm thinking of is if we're talking $796,000 amongst these 3 projects, how quickly could we have the results of a thorough update of the roads needs study, earmark that amount of money, and then decide on the use of that money, subject to review of a thoroughly updated road needs study?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. If the road needs study were approved for 2020, we could go out to tender in January. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a good, decent look at the roads probably until May or June. They would look at every road section, compile a report. The last report was a couple of months before I received it, so we would probably be into August or September before we received it. Ideally, I would like it before our next budget is due.
So that timeframe would not therefore allow work to be done on whatever roads would be finalized under that scenario in 2020 calendar year, is that correct?
That might be a little optimistic to have it done to do work for 2020.
Okay, other comments? Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Director Coleman. I support actually what Councillor Ritchie is proposing. Wondering if we defer this till Wednesday, would you have enough time to possibly get some numbers together for Grenfell Road and Floss Road that Councillor Ritchie is requesting, Floss Road 4, just so we would have a better idea of the numbers. Do you think? Thanks, just curious.
Director Coleman?
Thanks, Mary Ellen. I could actually give you ballpark numbers right now, if you'd like.
I like.
I'm just, my calculator's a little warm, but Floss 6 West, assuming that it's 3,200 meters long, 7 meters wide, you'd be looking at about $200,000. Grenfell Road, I have a measurement of 1,750 meters, again, assuming 7 meters wide, you're looking at about $100,000. That does not include any base repairs, any shouldering, any driveway repairs, or any culverts that have to be replaced.
Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Just Director Coleman, about Coghlan Road, when you said that I might use the wrong terminology, basically patch it up for 2020 and then fix it like we said in 2021, would that cost us more money?
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you to Councillor Mel Chapman. It certainly is possible that it would cost more money. Certainly leaving it, the longer you leave things, the faster once they've kind of started to deteriorate, then they tend to deteriorate longer. So it would be a case of possibly additional base repairs that may be required if it's not done this year.
So am I correct in saying if Coghlan Road was $319,400 budgeted, and we've just said that Grenfell Road and Floss Road 6 West is a combination of 300,000, then one basically offsets the other, is that correct? Or two offset the one, is that correct? So if we consider to do Grenfell and Floss Road 6 West, took out Coghlan Road and left the other two in, then we would be no further net cost from a capital perspective on these ones we've talked about. Is that right?
I think the funding source may be the issue with Coghlan Road. I just have to defer to the CAO there.
CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the funding source actually for Coghlan, although it's DC funded, and I believe Councillor Cabral and I had this conversation, we don't actually have any money in our roads DC. So the portion that's actually to be DC funded is proposed to be front-ended by debt. So the funding for Coghlan is a portion is from debt and the other portion is from gas tax.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you.
Councillor Ritchie had his hand up first, yeah.
I just wanted to mention, Mayor Allen, that your scenario is one way of looking at it, but I think there's another two there that I want to speak about as well too, that I think we could defer to get to the total amount that I mentioned there earlier, and set those aside and then go back and take a look, because, you know, I'm looking for money for a drain. I've got problems there. Like there's issues there. So I think if we just kind of agree in principle about moving forward with some of this stuff and delaying some of this stuff, get through it all, and then we can sort it out from there. But what do I know?
All right, that's, if that's okay with council, we'll just keep going down the list. Now, the next one talks about Doran Park tennis lights. So that's, is that it there? Where's the Doran Park tennis lights? That's moved by. Okay, so what we'll do going forward is we'll put these on the table without actually getting movers and seconders, and then once we go through the discussion, then we'll circle back. So the next is the Doran Park tennis lights, which was submitted by Councillor Cabral, and that was that it be removed from the budget.
Why aren't we going down to the next one?
Well,
Submitted by Councilor Ritchie, project Floss Road 4 East. The next one, Floss Road 10 East.
I thought we had talked about those.
No,
Okay,
we've talked Concord Road, but we haven't talked
Okay.
about the east of it.
okay.
My apologies, but I'm just.
Well,
making-
no, that's fine. I thought we'd sort of covered the costs of them and the fact of it. Okay, go ahead to Floss Road 4 East then. Councillor
Thank you,
Ritchie.
Mayor Allen. I thought we may as well just finish it off while we're here. Again, this is a project, I've driven it, I looked at it. Could we do something? Yes, but looking back on those other ones that we've identified already, I wouldn't have a problem deferring that for a year. I think there's enough bones there on the road that'll last us for a year. And, as far as, do you want me to talk about both, or are we gonna do one at a time? Well, let's just deal with that. I don't have a problem deferring that for 1 year. I don't think that's gonna hurt anything.
Okay, any other comments on that by anybody before we, Councillor Cabral?
Thanks, Mayor Allen. This one here, I got some information back as to why it was going forward, but I did have some concerns about a portion with respect to the old second out to Highway 93. So I'd have to say I agree with Councillor Ritchie, especially since this road's coming down the pipes to not be ours anymore.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Ritchie, the next one, Floss 10 East.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. This one here, again, this one here sees a lot of traffic, a lot of truck traffic, a lot of heavy traffic. Given the location of it, because it's close to the gravel pits, good drainage. Again, can I live with it for a year? Absolutely. And take that money that is scheduled for it and look for it. This is not in my ward, but if there was another road in another ward, like in Grenville, like Councillor Moore or to Councillor Cabral, that we could fix that to a gravel conversion, I support it 100%. That ain't gonna hurt for a year. I drive it all the time. It's in good shape. For now, it would last till next year. Any comments on that?
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I can just say that I've driven it. I went and looked at it myself as well. It is a different type of pavement once we get to the township pit, and I take it that's pretty much where the area is that it's going out to 93, but it certainly is serviceable. There are a lot of heavy trucks that travel on it, and the pavement, from what I saw there, was in fairly good repair and could continue to go for a number of years. So I really struggle with redoing that one this year.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one. Councillor Cabral, the Doran Park tennis lights, you're recommending that be removed and that it be referred back to staff for further options, costs, and anticipated savings to reconsider in the 221 draft budget.
Yes, Mayor Allen, thank you. And that comes partially from dialogue with staff about LED conversions that actually we weren't realizing quite the significant savings that we had anticipated. I don't want to see us do a conversion and not realize the savings. The other aspect that came into this was the delaying of the lights at Elmvale. And we put that off, and I don't think it would hurt to put this off for a year or two and get a report back from staff. I know that it cost a few bucks to go up and change ballasts, but it probably costs the same amount of money when a bulb burns out and they have to go up and fix it too. So I'd like to get a little bit more mileage out of this and report back from staff as to exactly what it is they want to do and how we're going to benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving to the next one, which is the Homer Barrett Park rink boards. I notice, okay, Homer Barrett rink boards. So that's, the recommendation there is that it be removed from the draft and referred back to staff for further information as to additions, options, including materials, comparative costs, in order that council may reconsider the project for 221 draft. So just continuing our discussion before, Councillor Cabral, anything more to add?
Yes, what I wanted to add here is, even from the pictures, it looks fairly serviceable. The wood looks in pretty good shape. Yeah, it's not the best deal, but it served the community for 5 years. I think it'll last a little bit longer. What I'd like to see in the meantime, though, is, and I did have dialogue with staff on this, is there's other options that might be available to us in the form of down towards Walmart there in the beach, they have an outdoor rink and ball rink that they use, and the boards there are fabricated from interlocking plastic pieces, which might be a great solution. So I just wanted them to remove it for now, get staff to look at what other options are available, what other materials we can put in there, and see if that $80,000 can come down to a much more manageable level for the boards.
Marilyn, I just want to mention there, and Deputy Mayor Coughlin talked about the price of it there, and she's got a good point, but when I look back on the way we did it with Phelps, in our second term, I think we put $25,000 a year aside until we had the money, and then we went forward and we put them in. And they like it. It's nice. In order to address Homer Baird Park, for boards, and again, there's that new development, Hedburn development is it, up in the corner. And remember, they still got to bring their sewer line through there. So, but if there's a development in Grenville or in Menacing area or whatever, if we could pull all these together and say, okay, well, you know what, why don't we set $100,000 a year aside, or that might be something to think about next year if the government sprinkles us with some pixie dust with some more gas tax money. And maybe we can put that aside. And then on our fourth year and the end of the term, and some of us are going out the door, some of these projects can take and bear fruit from the money that we've set aside. It would help Homer Baird Park, it would help Grenville, Menacing, whatever areas it is, and see these things materialize. We did that in Phelpson. We did that, the boards, I think the boards in Hillsdale came from DC funding, but we put money into these, and it's bared fruit. People are coming in using, like our municipality beside us. They're closing a lot of theirs down because they never bothered to put money into it. We chose to go and put money into it, Hillsdale Hall, and it's rented out all the time. So it does work, and people like this, and that's one way I think of addressing this, and I want to mention that to you, Mayor Allen.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one is the, Councillor Cabral, two things, 47 and 49, the bylaw vehicle and the pickup truck. Councillor Cabral, I'll let you round that out.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Part of the ask for the pickup truck for Public Works was based on 6 people, and they did not get their Public Works assistant, so that number's back to status quo, I guess, from last year. And bylaw was seeking an SUV, and I guess my thoughts on this is it's kind of like the mongoose and the snake. One's daytime and one's nighttime. So I'm thinking here that bylaw has a pickup truck. They're looking for an SUV. I think they're asking for a pretty nice SUV. I think $30,000 would be more than adequate to get them the likes of an Escape or something like that. As a matter of fact, I went online and got some pricing, and I can tell you for sure that it's quite easily doable. And I thought that since Public Works has been using their vehicles as well, that it might serve us to Public Works have access to that vehicle through the daytime, because bylaw's position was that they needed a vehicle for the overlap and working nights, so that both bylaw officers would have access to a vehicle. I think that's a fairly equitable solution, so that's what I'm putting the motion forward on.
CEO Schmidt or Director, any follow-up comments? Directors?
Through the mayor over to Councillor Cabral. When we looked at replacing, actually the 2014 bylaw truck was slated to be replaced this year. That bylaw truck was going to go over to Public Works. And reviewing what we were kind of seeing this year was that we did have some overlap. And I know that there's a a bit of overlap that is occurring. It's not only day and nighttime shifts. What we're finding is we are having a crunch, particularly in the summer months, when we actually have maybe even a third bylaw officer on, and that's our summer student. So that student was coming in the morning, and we want to put him all on in the months of May and June to patrol our hotspots and our school zones. So that meant that the other bylaw officer couldn't go out until that bylaw person came back. That was problem number one. The hours where they're actually overlapping, it's actually about, if you have to put in numbers, because we are rotating that shift over, there is a bit of an overlap between when both of them are here. So they have to kind of coordinate that as part of the mix. And we did have some problems this year with trying to do that. So, and we were in situations where we were trying to search, okay, who's got a vehicle now? And for the most part, we were, for the most part, lucky trying to get another vehicle, but it is becoming increasingly more difficult to do it. $30,000 for a pickup, or sorry, for an SUV. Yeah, just for comparables, you are correct. You can probably pick up a smaller size SUV, such as a Hyundai, which costs around $27,000. You could do that. The one problem we are having is because with bylaw, we are dealing with large canines. I think we can maybe accommodate some sharing of vehicles with having the extra vehicle around. And I don't want to speak for Public Works on that regard, but I think I just want to point out it's not just a morning and afternoon. We are having quite a bit of crossovers, and we are seeing some difficulties in doing that as part of it.
Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. With the new SUV, does it have to be brand new, or can you look at a 2018 or 19 that's a little cheaper but in great shape?
Director?
Through Mayor over to Councillor Ma Chapman. We have, I don't think we've ever bought used in the past. We generally are looking at newer. We've been fortunate sometimes in getting a year or a demo model, I know, in the past, and we've been pretty fortunate on that end of things. Now, if you do buy used, obviously, then you have the increased maintenance costs. And sometimes we do have to be concerned with making sure we have a reliable vehicle out there, just so we don't get stuck in the bush.
Really for this, so if we're looking at a $30,000 cost, let's say for both, we could take that first one and make that more like 30,000, and the next one like both at 30,000. So, or what are your thoughts on that, Director?
Just, I would be a little bit concerned with the reducing it down to 30. I don't think we're really going to need 50 as indicated on it. But just for comparables, like, again, doing the same thing as Councillor Cabral did, looking at some costing out there, something, and we're not talking about high end, like a Dodge Journey, for instance, that is four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, you're looking at around $42,000. So I don't know if I want to go down or suggest going down to $30,000, but I think there may be some play in terms of what that amount is.
Okay, right. I think we've talked about that one enough. Next is Councillor Cabral.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mayor Allen. I just, I guess it could have gone one way or the other. It sounds like bylaw's not getting it, but actually it could have gone to bylaw and Public Works not been the one that was getting it. What I was getting at is I think an additional vehicle should be certainly acquired, but not two vehicles. Thank you.
All right, next we move on to this pathway. Councillor Moore.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Allen. This is actually from Councillor Hanna. It's because he's away, he's asked for me to speak for him on a couple of these, as well as Councillor Cabral. So the explanation, this is the pathway. A growth-related expense that should be covered by DCs. There is no safe walking or bike path between Midhurst, etc., and Barrie. With the estimated major increase in population for the area, a trail or pathway in the St. Vincent corridor needs to be planned for. Currently, pedestrians, joggers, and bikers are forced off the edge of the road by traffic. Thank you. Estimate unknown.
And this is suggested to be in the 10-year capital plan for 2025 by the looks of it.
Sorry, I forgot that part, yes. So he says estimate unknown and projected out for 2025, correct.
Okay. Any discussion about that? Okay. Next is Councillor Cabral, photo radar. No, you go ahead.
Same situation. This is in respect to the recently announced provincial statement that photo radar was going to be permitted for municipalities, and that it might be something that the township would consider. There is an approximate cost of $100,000. However, the understanding is that whatever fines are levied, township would recoup some, but that would certainly be based on the number of tickets that would be issued and how many were paid. The recommendation too was that it was mobile radar, not fixed cameras, and that even the signs alone would probably act as a bit of a deterrent. So it's to be put in there for $100,000, but I certainly would support it in the sense that it's probably a good option to look at in respect of for our school zones and certain areas like that where we are, having a lot of people who are disobeying the speed limit, and we're getting calls on that. So I am putting it forth on behalf of Councillor Hanna. Whether it's this year or next, but I certainly think it is something we should consider.
And how is the approximate cost of $100,000 arrived at?
I can't tell you, Mayor Allen. I guess it's a contract or a lease position. I don't think the intent was for us to buy the equipment. I think the intent is for us to contract someone to make it available to us. So I can't speak to the $100,000 figure, Mayor Allen.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin, then Councillor Moore.
No, just the $100,000, does that include the cost of a staff member or a contract person in order to do this?
Councillor Moore seems to know something about it.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I have Councillor Hanna's explanation, so if I could just read that, this is maybe help to figure out where he's thinking, or what he's thinking. So for 2020, the estimate at $100,000 is to locate required warning signs in appropriate safety zones ASAP, to contract or lease one van with portable photo radar equipment to be rotated through safety zones or throughout safety zones to provide flexibility to accommodate growth. Not quite sure what that means. I would recommend against purchasing and installing fixed cameras. The estimate is $75,000 each, plus installation, service, maintenance, etc., at an estimate of $500,000. And he quotes, in some USA states, fixed cameras were regular targets of vandals. The original photo radar program created by the province in the 90s was 2 vans working a 400 highway series in the GTA, very successful. The vans and radar equipment were leased and driven around by special constables, paid about $20 per hour. When Mike Harris was elected and canceled the program, the province was not stuck with thousands of dollars in unusable equipment, service and maintenance, contractors, issues, etc. I hope that makes things a bit clearer.
Councillor Cabral?
I just wanted to thank Councillor Moore. I just pulled up, it was a Word document that I didn't see it, so I apologize.
Okay, other comments with respect to this?
We're talking about it again after.
Yep, for sure, each one. Councillor, no? Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm not understanding this truly. Would that be our responsibility or the police responsibility? And how would we give out the traffic stuff?
Councillor Cabral, do you have any idea about that?
The way it generally works is once the photo has been taken, similar to the red light cameras, the photograph and the video evidence goes to a location where they have sworn A lot of them are retired police officers who review the material, make sure that in fact everything is clear enough in there to warrant the charge, and they issue the charge from that location. I don't see it as something that we would necessarily be doing it from our end or having our people actually swear out the information. That's how the red light cameras presently work in Toronto.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, and I think that as a lot of municipalities move through this, it definitely can be something that we can have discussion about, but to be included in the 2020 budget is not something, I mean, this should, to me, should be an item for future consideration or a notice of motion and have the work begin, but to put a 1% tax in there just to ensure it, and to me, not fully understanding the costs associated, but we can't get garbage men for $25 an hour. I don't know how we're gonna get trained police officers for $20 an hour, plus the administration fees of issuing these and retaining them. And the idea of the municipality recouping the costs is still a discussion, a heavy discussion amongst our colleagues. So I think there's a lot of information. I think it's a great initiative, and we do need to at least look into it because it is a new initiative. But as far as being included in the 2020 budget, it's not something I could support.
Councillor Moore?
Thanks, Mayor Allen. And I don't know if Councillor Hanna was really striving to make sure this happened. I think he'd be happy with it becoming an IFC. And just to reiterate that this was in 1990, they were paid $20 an hour.
Okay, all right, next is the Winter Tennis Clubhouse. Councillor Cabral?
Yeah, this regards setting aside some funds to relocate the existing winter tennis clubhouse and connect to existing septic, and this will provide for required washrooms and change rooms. I think there was some discussion with this at a previous council meeting where I think the understanding was that Township had access to the clubhouse once they built their new one, so I guess the thing here is to include it so that when it finally does become available to us, that we'll be able to do something with it.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you. Can I have more information? I thought that already was happening. I thought that the assumption of the old clubhouse and the relocation, I thought that was all part of one big plan for that area. Is this a different initiative, or how is this different than what we were intending to do? Does it make sense?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. Essentially, I believe when the lease agreement came up, there was discussion with the Winter Tennis Club that they were wanting to propose a new clubhouse. My understanding is the original proposal has is not going according to plan, if you will. And so, but still with that said, I believe according to the existing lease agreement, we have access, we technically now own that existing clubhouse. There has been some discussions with Mr. Anderson and myself and the Barrie Winter Tennis Club, or the Winter Tennis Club, about they still want to move forward with a new facility. I'm not exactly sure the timing of when they will be back here to provide council with an update on that. So there is some consideration whereby if they are moving forward with a new facility, is there still an opportunity to have a shared facility with them, which we do have money slated in the 2020 capital budget for that. So project number 20, sorry for a sec here, what number is it here? 2019-34, I believe it is. So there are some money set aside there, but it would be for a brand new facility. This existing facility, or this existing clubhouse could be repurposed potentially in another area of the municipality. One option that is a potential is to relocate it to the Tree Nursery Sports Park and have additional washroom facilities for the soccer fields, as opposed to having everybody go over to the concession booth. So that is one potential opportunity as well. But again, these are things that are we're still in the talks with them regarding this.
Follow on?
Yes, so then, why would we want to connect them if, like, that to me seems like a plan B, whereas we're actually moving forward as the tennis people want to upgrade their facility. That would be, to me, a better suit for the community. So I'm just curious if there's more information about why we would do this, if there's already a plan for something which I think is better than this or better suited next year.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin, they're still in preliminary discussions, so it's not a for sure that the new facility is going to happen. Their original proposal, I think, was they came in and they realized what the costs were and said, yeah, they can't afford that. So I think they're scaling it back. And the idea is that hopefully in 2020, they'll be back here to have a discussion with council and staff as to what their new proposal is. The idea is that we would hopefully have a shared facility with them. Hence, this existing facility is ours. We determine what we do with that. One option, I guess, is through Councillor Hanna is indicating that he would prefer to see, I guess, this facility moved to the site of the Midhurst Pavilion and essentially have it hooked up and use it as a washroom and a rink house type facility, as opposed to going with a shared facility with the tennis club. I believe that's what he's proposing here.
In a different location than it presently sits.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then the next and final recommendation was Councillor Cabral's from last week. And that is with respect to the Yonge Street North and George Street crosswalk. Anything further to add since last week, Councillor Cabral?
No, Mayor Allen. I think everything that could be said was said last week. I'm just looking for council's support moving it forward once again.
Okay, so Councillor Cabral, Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to the clerk, did we cover all 5 of Councillor Hanna's requests? Because I believe we missed a couple, but maybe that was something he arranged with you.
Clerk Chaparro?
Thank you. There may be some within the operational portion of the agenda, which will be dealt with once capital has been dealt with.
Yeah, these are capital resolutions. Okay, so going back over the ones that we have reviewed. How best to handle this? But, okay, we have to deal with them individually, but just looking at the roads ones, as I was trying to do before, Councillor Ritchie had, okay. The drainage ones were more operating, right? Yes. Okay, so these are the capital-oriented resolutions. So with respect to the roads, as I said, the first 1, 2, 3, 4 relate to roads, and then there's the Grenfell. So Grenfell's 100,000. The estimate for Floss Road 6 West is 200,000. The Coughlin Road is budgeted at 319,400. The Floss 4 East is budgeted at 327,000. And the Floss 10 East is 150,000. So, as I was mentioning before, if we exclude Coughlin Road at 319, then that is roughly offset by Grenfell at 100 and the Floss Road 6 West at 200. Any comments or discussion with respect to that point? Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. With the estimate of Grenfell and Floss Road 6, I guess that's just an estimate from Director Coleman. It possibly could be more or less, correct? With the ditching, the shoulders and all that, and the culvert?
She's shaking her head, so yes, it was a best guess estimate at this point. Do you have a question about that, or?
Yes, so thank you, Mayor Allen, wiping out Coglin and replacing with two is not really making sense and the dollar wise.
Well, I'm looking for, the suggestion was to defer the County Road 27 for a year and reconsider it, and the Floss Road 10 East for a year and reconsider it in 221. So I'm trying to figure out a way to possibly deal with combination of the Coglin Road, Grenfell, and Floss Road 6 West. Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen. See what happens when it gets to be 8:15? Things shut down. There's a component here we're not talking about, and that is the stretch between County Road 29 and Vigo Road, which is concession 6, which I left off the table. And it's about 3 kilometers as well, too. So if you're looking for a place to put the money, you could go from County Road 29 right back to Atkinson Road. And that would fit, and that's the route that the trucks take. They come out of the pits and they go straight back. Now, the stretch between County Road 29 and Vigo Road, I believe in our second term, it had a lift of gravel. It had some work done to it because of the amount of traffic that it had. We finally addressed it. And I believe Vigo, and then the other portion had as well too. So if we're going to do it, the question is, and do the whole thing at once and then it's done.
Clarification, Director Coleman, that 200,000 that you gave us, was that for both components of Floss Road 6 West?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That was for the 3.12 kilometers that Councillor Ritchie mentioned.
And what would be an estimate for the Floss 6 West from Vigo to Atkinson?
Same one.
Oh, that is it. Oh, yeah, so it is the 3, so it's both of those, so, okay. All right. Councillor Ritchie?
The 200,000 is for 3.12 kilometers from Vigo Road to Atkinson Road, okay? The other piece that I'm talking about runs from County Road 29, Crossland Road, to Vigo Road, which is approximately, according to my records, distance which I took from interactive mapping, 3.13 kilometers. So you're about another $200,000, which would take it, a gravel conversion, straight back and fix the problem once and for all and be done.
But that's not in this recommendation. No, I'm not looking for any distances. I'm looking for a way to accommodate with dollars these 3 things. If we remove one and have 2 others that are roughly equal, I'm trying to get a plausible, so I'm not trying to add to the requests that are here any further. Okay, how do we move forward? So, all right, on the assumption then that we'll remove Coglin Road and we will add the recommendation with respect to Floss Road 6 West and Grenfell Road, then I'll start with the first motion here, which was moved by Ritchie, seconded by Cabral, that be it resolved that the following projects be included for consideration in the final draft of the 220 capital budget: Floss Road 6 West, gravel conversion to hardtop from Vigo to Atkinson Road, approximately 3.12 kilometers. Any further discussion before we vote on that? All those in favor? That is carried. Start to make some progress. Okay. Next is moved by Ritchie, seconded by Moore. Be it resolved that project 2020-08 Coglin Road from Horseshoe Valley Road to Rainbow Valley Road be removed from the 220 capital budget and deferred to the deferred for consideration, I would suggest, or as opposed to deferred to the 2021 capital budget. I just want to add for consideration because I don't want to be making final decisions. Pardon me? Okay. deferred for consideration, you read that in the 2021 capital budget. All those in
No,
favor?
what- Marilyn, through you to Clerk Chaperon, I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of that? Carried.
Marilyn, it's my kids and they don't call if it's not an emergency.
Go ahead. Okay, the next is, was moved by Richie, and this pertains to Floss Road 4 East. We need a seconder on that, please. Councillor Cabral. That, project 215-14, Floss Road 4 East from County Road 27 to Highway 93 be removed from the 2020 capital budget and deferred to the 2021 capital budget for consideration. All those in favor? Question?
A comment?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Earlier this evening, when we were discussing this, and whenever we talk about Floss Road 4, there seems to be a connotation or a note. And we understand that at some point the county is said to assume this road. But I don't want it to appear to members of county council or members of staff at the county that it's our intent to not work with them in order to maintain a minimum maintenance on this road. I think that even though this is going to be assumed or potentially assumed by the county, we have a responsibility to the people that live on the road and to our county partners to make sure that we are doing our part. I would assume at time of transfer that it's going to be required to be at a certain level of standard, and we would be required to bring it to that standard before they would assume it. But to me, to continue to push something aside just because, and I think this is the third time that we've done this now, I just want to make sure that we don't continually put this road off simply because
Okay.
the county is going to take it over.
I could add serious consideration.
Serious
Yeah,
consideration?
Yes. I might add as well
My
that
grandma also is going to yell at me when I get home.
that this, there's going to be considerable traffic on this road right at Penetanguishene and 4 as the preparation for the development of the property on the corner of 4 and Penetanguishene Road proceeds and commences and proceeds next year. So I just point that out. Councillor Cabral?
Just a comment there, that's the best stretch of the 4th, is that area there, because Atlas Block had been there
Yes.
all along, so I,
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. And then we should do, okay, the next pertains to Floss Road 10 East. That was moved by Richie. I need a seconder, please, for that. Councillor Moore. Be it resolved that project 2020-12 Floss 10 East, 1.35 kilometers east of Old Second Road to Highway 93 be removed from the 220 capital budget and deferred for consideration in the 221 capital budget. All those questions or comments?
I'm sorry, during the last part, you said, no, you get to have your questions later. I thought this was the part where we're supposed to have questions.
I welcome your
Oh,
question.
thank you.
Deputy
It's,
Mayor
it is a question. Is this section of that road with the pits there, is this full load road, half load road, and are we required to maintain it to a different level? Or is this just,
Director Coleman?
Thank you, Marilyn. Through you to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. This would be subject to seasonal load restrictions in the spring. And I don't believe we're required to keep it at a certain level.
and has this section been, I mean, it says 2020, so is this the first time it's been coming forward? It hasn't been deferred already? typically it would say 2017 or 18
Yeah,
if it
no,
was.
it,
Okay.
to my knowledge, it hasn't been deferred.
So this is the first time it's been pushed back. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments before we vote? All those in favor? Carried. And as part of this group, the move by Anita, Councillor Moore, second, we need a seconder on that. Councillor Ritchie. Propose to have single surface treatment in 220 for Grenfell Road from Sunnydale Road to Highway 90. What is the, is there an estimated cost for that, Director Coleman?
Can I just clarify, you said single surface treatment?
Single surface. Oh, yeah,
Single
that-
surface treatment, you could probably,
Sorry, you did give us a figure of 100,000. I have that jotted.
yeah, that was based on double surface treatment. So if you're requesting a single surface treatment on that, it would be probably 70,000.
Okay. Councillor Moore?
Hi, oh, sorry, hi. Mayor. Ay, ay, ay. I am not fully fluent in road types and surfaces. So whatever the $100,000 was that you quoted, as long as it's not gravel and it's converted from gravel, I'm happy. Thanks.
Okay.
To the discretion of staff then?
Surface treatment in 220, okay. Proposed to have surface treatment in 220 for Grenfell Road from Sunnydale Road to Highway 90. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, that deal with the roads.
be approved. These all come back again.
Okay, okay, next we move on to Doran. Lights. We have it moved by Cabral, we need a seconder on that. Councillor Chapman. That the project 22045 Doran Lights be removed from the final draft 220 budget and be referred back to staff for further information as to options, costs, and anticipated savings in order that council may consider the project in a 221 draft budget. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, we're dealing with the Homer Barrett Park. That was moved by Councillor Cabral, seconded by Councillor Ritchie. 22046 project, replace Homer Barrett Park rink boards, be removed from the final draft 220 budget and be referred back to staff for further information as to additional options, including materials and comparative costs, in order that council may reconsider the project to the 221 draft budget. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, next we're dealing with these two vehicles, sorry. That was moved by Councillor Cabral, seconder to get it on the table. Councillor Moore. And that was, that project 22047, new bylaw vehicle, be removed from the final draft of the 220 budget, and that project 22049, new pickup for public works, be reduced from 50 to 30K in order that a suitable sedan or SUV be purchased for use of public works, days, and bylaw evenings. Discussion on that. Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor Allen, I'm concerned, like you had 50, now we put it down to 30, is 30 gonna do it? Like, I mean, I'd be happy with 40. Because I don't think you're gonna get something for 30, I don't know, by the time you pay the HST, whatever's left over, it goes back into that Happy Day fund or whatever, but I think 40 would be more, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Ippolito.
Well, I think we had the discussion. Anything further, Director, on that?
The only thing I can add to it, I do have a range of vehicles which I think would work. The only problem is you go out to tender, you're not gonna necessarily get them all back.
Right.
And they range from anywhere from like, you know, $37,000 up to $52,000. If you kind of split in the middle, you're around $44,000 roughly for something I think we need.
Follow on?
Yes, we still have that little Honda Civic out there, do we not? That little buggy? Like, that thing's been around forever, like, and it's still going. Like, you know, to get something like that, very economical, you know, bring that on staff. But you must be up hitting close to the 40 mark anyways, but any,
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Conlon?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Procurement bylaw is 50, is that correct? 50,000, what's the procurement bylaw? This will come back to council again if it's earmarked at what amount?
Over 50.
So if the purchase is over 50, it needs to come back to council for approval. If it's under 50, it does not.
Information report.
Okay, so if council, so it would be essentially, it's anywhere over 50, but we're saying, from what I'm hearing, is that 50 is not acceptable, but 44 might be? So for $5,000 is what we're talking about?
May I propose something, Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
No.
CAO?
So the way the motion is currently worded is that you're removing the bylaw vehicle, which essentially is funded 100% from a reserve, whereas the new pickup is actually funded 100% from taxation. So you may want to reconsider how the motion is worded in that regards.
Public Works is not happy with you.
Property taxpayer might be though.
Mayor Allen, I'm happy to rephrase that. To be quite honest with you, it didn't matter to me when I wrote it up which way it went.
Right.
So you're more than welcome to swap them around.
Okay, we'll just work on adjusting it here.
All that I would suggest is you leave the 2020-47 new bylaw at 50,000. If it comes in less, we're going to pull less from the reserve, and we'll report back to council as to what that is. And if you choose, then just remove project 2020-49, and you'll save you 50,000 in property taxes. It's a suggestion.
The project 2049 vehicle be removed from the final draft of the 220 budget, and project 2020-47 new pickup for up to $50,000 to be purchased for the use of Public Works and bylaw. Okay. Comment?
Thank you. Is it being removed from 2020 or is it being deferred to 2021?
The first one?
Remove.
A vehicle.
It's being removed from 2020. Councillor Cabral?
Sorry, Mayor Allen, just a clarification there. I thought they wanted an SUV.
New vehicle.
New vehicle. Okay. Ready? All those in favor? Carried. Next is the St. Vincent Corridor Pathway. And that was moved by Councillor Moore. We need a seconder on that. Councillor Cabral. And it reads, the costs associated with the construction of the pathway on St. Vincent Corridor to be included in the 10-year capital plan for the year 2025, with funding to be received by development charges. Deputy Mayor Conlon?
Thank you. Active transportation lanes, are they considered part of development charges? I mean, we can't just dictate what is covered by DC and what's not, so to me, I have no problem putting this forward as an information report, or, I mean, it's something that we can all understand would be greatly used by the residents, but I just, the way that it's worded, I mean, we don't have the ability to dictate if something can be covered by development charges. And also I'm sorry, I just would have assumed that an active transportation lane would have been included in any road work to be done during the development.
CAO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Coughlin. So to your point about development charges, again, without knowing the real specifics of what we're really doing and what that project's gonna look like and how it's gonna potentially benefit the existing area and growth related, somewhat difficult right now to determine what that is. I guess to your question about active transportation, I have to defer that to our Director of Public Works. But, you know, with this said, I think the idea is that I'm not sure that you would see, and my proposal would be, is I'm not sure you would see anything in the 10-year this year. But I think if this comes back to staff, we can investigate it and ensure that it is in the 10-year come next year. But we're gonna have to do some work on this. What exactly are we talking about? It's a little, with all due respect, it's a little loose, to be honest with you.
Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
And thank you, Marilyn. I don't know how to do this considering it is Councillor Hannah's. Is it possible then to have a friendly amendment that the information, or that this be included in the 2021 10-year capital? Because to expect that information to be included, I don't know how to move it forward.
It's not gonna have an impact on this year.
No, but it's not gonna, there's not gonna be any information either.
That's,
The motion was put forward by two present councillors, so it was an idea of,
Sorry, I
yeah.
thought it was.
no, it's put
we
forward
put it
by,
as an IFC
Or-
potentially.
so if you want to amend it to something. Councillor, I'll let you think about that. Councillor Cabral?
I was going to say, if it might make things easier, since it was my motion, the portion there that speaks to funding from DCs, we could strike that and ask that a report come back from staff.
So convert it to an IFC?
Sure.
Can you read that? Is that all right with the mover, Councillor Moore?
I think the intent was to get it moving towards that direction.
The motion reads that costs associated with the construction of a pathway on St. Vincent Street corridor be included in the 10-year capital plan for the year 2025. With a report to be brought back regarding further details and options regarding potential of the project. No, we're converting it to an IFC. Okay, the motion, if, subject to being agreeable to the mover and seconder, that staff provide a report regarding the construction of a pathway on the St. Vincent Street corridor for consideration. Okay. All right, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, next is the photo radar, which was moved by Councillor Cabral, seconded by Councillor Moore. Photo radar? No, I'm asking if you're seconding it, yes. That council hereby directs staff to research and report on the leasing of a van equipped with photo radar equipment to be rotated through identified safety zones across the township at an appropriate cost of $100,000, and that the associated cost be included for consideration in the final draft of the 220 budget. Comment? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. I would support, as we did in the last motion, for the ball to get rolling, for the information to come back. But as far as putting 1% back into the budget with no real information, I'm sure that they're educated or informed numbers, but I think there's a lot more research that needs to happen. But as long as we can get it moving forward and to have it as part of consideration for council at a later date, I could support it. But I would like to see the last two lines removed.
Councillor Cabral and Moore, are you agreeable to that friendly amendment?
Mayor Allen, I think I will be. I think it is a new program. It might be worthwhile to get more information on it, but I do really hope that we can move forward on it quicker rather than later through the year to get something happening, because we might find out that we can do it on a cost recovery basis, possibly. Who knows?
Councillor
Agreed.
Moore?
Agreed.
Okay, we're just adjusting wording here. Okay, the revision is that council hereby directs staff to research and report on photo radar. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Next is the Winter Tennis Clubhouse, which I have moved by Cabral, seconded by Anid, a seconder. Councillor Moore. That council directs staff to relocate the existing Winter Tennis Clubhouse and connect water, wastewater for use as washroom and change room facilities for the Midhurst Pavilion, and that the associated cost be included for consideration in the final draft of the 220 budget. Comment? Deputy Mayor Coughlin.
Yes, thank you. From what I've learned this evening, the current tenants, or I guess occupants of that facility, are not ready to move out, nor do we understand if that would be the preferred location for that building. Also, the costs associated with hooking up to water and sewers. So I think, again, putting it as a project for 2020 when the tennis club hasn't even come forward, maybe it just be deferred, because until we have an idea what the tennis club wants to do, I don't think we can make this decision, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, through to CEO Schmidt. Given that it's already at that location, and they would just be moving it a short distance away and hooking up to the sewers again, do you have any idea how much of that could be accomplished by staff as opposed to outside agencies? Because the problem we have is we have absolutely no idea what it would cost anyway.
CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Cabral. So I'll answer your question indirectly, I guess. This is that in the 2020 capital budget, there is a project for us to partner with the Winter Tennis Club on a brand new facility. So I think until that comes back to council and a decision is made, it might be premature to make a decision on this particular motion. So I think once the decision is made on a potential shared facility, if it doesn't work out, then maybe we look at this again. But if it does work out, then this facility is ours. We could try to repurpose it in another location in the township. So I think, again, I would my suggestion would be is let's wait until we see something come back from the tennis club and see if we can negotiate something on a shared facility, so.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just wording on some possible amended wording. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
And I don't know how to say this, but would the mover be comfortable just with withdrawing this? And we could bring this forward at another time? Like, to me, there's no report coming from staff, there's no information to be sought. It's,
Councillor Cabral?
Mayor Allen, I'm just thinking back here, I was actually gonna ask CO Schmidt, we have no idea when they're gonna move. Could it be even next year that they start making their changes over there at the tennis bubble? Because if that's the case, yes, I will.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Cabral and members of council, I'll actually maybe defer this to Manager Anderson. He, I believe, has had a recent conversation with the tennis club. I think the idea is that they want to move something forward in 2020, but again,
Yes, so through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Cabral. I have been in, I guess, preliminary discussions with Barrie Winter North Tennis, and they don't have any concrete numbers on how much it's going to cost them to build a facility. They have a concept design in mind that they've created, but I think they're kind of over their heads right now with that. They didn't know that there was an option to partner with the township on this, and I did recommend it to them. What about a partnership? And he said, well, we're open to discussions. So I said, well, we have some time restraints right now. So, like, moving forward, we're going to have more discussions on how you see this facility suiting your needs, and it's suiting our needs as well. In speaking to that, there's challenges with both. There's challenges with utilizing that existing building because it's a raised kind of building, so there would be ramps and stuff built. And again, we don't know what the end cost is going to be to retrofit that building to our needs. So that's an unknown. And the location of the existing building that they want is going to be more or less to the lines of their property, or the tennis property, as opposed to the rink area. So I think more discussion definitely needs to have for better planning, because in the end, it's probably going to be, it should be our facility as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, on that basis, are you, Councillor Cabral, withdrawing the motion?
I didn't get a date, but yeah, I think it's worthwhile to withdraw the motion. Thank you.
You agreeable to that? Okay, that motion's withdrawn. So finally, before we break for tonight, we're dealing with Councillor Cabral's motion of last week that the council approved the PXO crosswalk at Yonge Street North and George Street, Elmville, and that this project be included for consideration in the final draft of 220 budget. It was moved by Councillor Cabral. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Ritchie. Discussion. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to, I can't remember what the cost was from last week. The cost that would have been.
Director Coleman, cost with respect to PXO crosswalk.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to clarify, do you want, a PXO would be a pedestrian crossing similar to what currently exists in Hillsdale?
I believe that's what Councillor Cabral was talking about last week. Councillor Cabral? Yes, he's nodding his head.
Okay, so similar to what's in Hillsdale, I think it would probably be fair to carry about $100,000. We'll need some design work done, and then the civil and the installation. Probably that might be a fair number. I would suggest that we use the same consultant that we do for the Highway 93, so we realize some savings there with a consulting engineer to design both projects.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Coughlin?
and I know there's probably a very technical answer, but explain to me again why we can't take the one that we're ripping out and put it in when it's exactly what we want.
Director Coleman.
We don't own it.
What are they gonna do with it? Can we?
They, as part of the contract, it'll be taken, disassembled and returned to the Midhurst, the MTO's Midhurst yard.
They'll repurpose it. Councillor Cabral? Sorry, Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I want just some clarification from the CAO for pockets of money. The money that we decided not to spend on Floss Road 4 East and Floss Road 10 East, roughly $475,000, if this crosswalk is $100,000, does it all come from the same pocket-ish? Thank you.
CAO Schmidt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council Moore. So that I'm gonna, to be quite honest with you, I need a little more time to digest kind of some of the decisions that were made tonight to understand the funding component of it. It looks like from the decisions that were made, some money as it relates to gas tax, so not the additional gas tax, but our annual gas tax. Looks like some money was freed up there, so we might be able to utilize some of those funds. But again, I gotta fiddle through some of these approvals tonight to understand the funding impact that's available, so.
Well, we could shelve this until the next meeting, until we get that information and whatever other information we feel we need.
Yeah, I guess the motion, the original motion was that it would come to this meeting for council's consideration. I guess the motion could be that it's moved to the next meeting for final consideration in the 2020
Is that
budget.
all right, Councillor Cabral?
If that was the intent of the motion originally, was to get it to consideration,
Yeah.
to go through for another vote, I would take it, is that correct?
Well, there is the final vote, but we're
Right, I would-
filtering and narrowing it down.
I would, yes, move it forward then, please, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll recess at this point, because, and good luck. All right, we'll recess to reconvene on Wednesday at 10 a.m., correct? Yes. Thank you. 10.
It's 9 for you.